Hello, welcome to episode 3. Now that you've awakened from, or at least questioned, the matrix of expectations that we live in, I want to support you to dive deeply into finding out who you really are and what the heck do you really want out of life? What do you want from your one precious life and the limited time that you have here on this earth? Most of us sadly don't know, or we haven't dug deeply or thoroughly enough to find out, especially if we came from a high pressure background that spoon fed or force fed us certain ways of living. So I'd like you to revisit your answers from episode 2, especially the what would you do or want or be if you were the only human on Earth, or if you were invisible or anonymous forever. What if you woke up in a different body every day so that whatever you do won't have any impact on your image or legacy? This can remove reasons for doing things that are primarily related to others, either pleasing, impressing, hurting, or rebelling against them, and isolate what it is that is really true for you. So this week's episode's questions are embedded all throughout, so please take as many pauses as you would need to reflect, journal, and write down or record in a voice note what comes up as you go along. Number 1, what matters to you? What are your top 5 values? And how are you currently living by them or not? How aligned with them are you living if you had to give yourself a rating from 1 to 10? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Have you ever taken various personality tests, such as the 16 personalities, MBTI, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, Human Design? I've included links to worksheets and tests in the show notes to help you better understand yourself. And I take these with a grain of salt, but they do provide some guidance if you're feeling totally lost and don't know where to start. Number 2, who did you admire or want to be like, and why? Who do you follow obsessively and are always happy to hear from? These heroes, heroines, role models, or your anti-heroes, heroines, and role models can tell us a lot about our authentic selves. What parts of them do you most admire or wish you could be like? In what ways do you see yourself in them or wish you could follow in their footsteps? What would you be dying to ask if you ever got a chance to talk to them? Or you can think about, for your anti-role models, what do you hate about them or dislike or feel even just a visceral disgust at, and know that you don't want anything to do with that or be like them ever? Those can just tell you a lot about yourself. Number 3, if you tried this exercise, if you had to introduce yourself 20 times in 20 different ways, and the only rule was that you couldn't repeat yourself, what would you say? You'd have to introduce yourself ideally to 20 different people, but you can do this just on your own as well. Would you be able to do it? So often we define ourselves only by 1 or 2 or a couple areas of our life, such as our career. Small talk conversations usually include, so what do you do? Or so what do you do? And I wish they would ask us more about who we really are rather than merely what we do. Yet again, reinforcing the need to achieve, to be worthy and acceptable, that fallacy. Or we define ourselves in relation to our relationships entirely as, I'm so-and-so's daughter, son, brother, sister, wife, husband, grandmother, etc. It's very hard to stand alone when all of our external things are stripped away. Do you know who you would be if they were gone? What would you have left? You would still have so much, actually. You would have your core personality, your traits, your quirks, your likes and dislikes, your unique needs, your unique patterns, and so much more. Number 4, if you had to share 50 things you absolutely love, could you do it? What about those pesky would you rather questions? And how would you explain or defend your answers? You can learn about yourself in so many ways. This is just a couple of examples. To be able to uncouple from your external achievements, it helps to know your internal world really well, ideally like the back of your hand. Because to be able to reach full self-acceptance and celebration of who you are and the freedom and liberation that comes with that, you need to know yourself deeply. We have such a rich, vibrant, and vast internal world that nobody can ever take away from us. It's like the 90% of an iceberg that can't be seen. Why do we place so much emphasis on the external 10% that's above the water's surface? Self-acceptance is about finding, knowing, and celebrating this core of who we are, this deeply lovable and worthy center, with all of our hopes, dreams, thoughts, feelings, tendencies. And yes, there are some flaws and ugly parts, but everybody has them. So yours are perfectly okay too, and are even adorable to certain people. My journey to self-acceptance was really gradual and subtle, and I can't pinpoint the exact turning points or when it finally sunk in that I am worthy. I am worthy? I'd always read that or been told that by therapists, coaches, or friends, and I always shrugged it off, or it felt really phony. In the beginning, it was a definite total dismissal, like, yeah, right, they're just being nice, or they're biased because they know me, or this is their job, or they don't know the real me or my dark parts, my broken parts. Later on, it was getting a little bit easier to believe that, but thoughts came up that were still like, oh, that's so nice to believe that. I really want to believe that. I just don't. I just can't, no matter how many times I hear it or I say it to myself. And I can't force myself into believing them or lie to myself that I do, but deep down I don't. I hated doing affirmation exercises and rolled my eyes at how cheesy and cringeworthy they sounded to me. Some of them did actually strike a nerve, though, and brought up emotions in me or even tears to my eyes. And I felt that I could actually wholly, with my full body, believe them, such as, I am a reasonable and basically okay person, or I can make one person smile today. If you hate affirmations too, try to come up with your own, or find one that you don't have resistance to, one that you can actually believe, and preferably one that brings up some sort of powerful emotions in you, because it won't be effective at all otherwise. And of course, it's more complicated than that. That's just one example. You can't just cover up your wounds and scars with blankets of bandages. You often do have to go back to drain the pus and confront past harmful memories and people. I hope you'll gather and lean on support as you move through your healing journey. Whatever brings comfort and is effective for you, it's different for everyone. Some are lucky enough to have supportive family and friends, and sometimes that's enough. But for those of us who don't, animals and pets can provide unconditional love and positive regard, and there's support groups online with or in person with others who went through similar challenges and overcame them. And of course, there are so many books, courses, programs, and even movies, shows, or other media forms that resonate with you can be deeply healing, because they may be able to portray or express or put into words what you feel, but you can't for yourself. That's really the power of storytelling and connecting with others. You can also hire a therapist, coach, mentor, or healer as well. There are so many forms of support out there, and it may take trial and error to find what works best for you. Back to some questions. Number 5, what do you think is the meaning of life? Is there a point to life? Whatever your beliefs and motivations are valid. What keeps you going day after day? Why do you exist? Do you believe you have a life's purpose? Or it's all just random and we're just here to play? Some people believe that we were born or created with a specific purpose, or several, which helps them keep going when times are rough, giving them a why or a reason for living. I admit that this helped me a lot, which was a reason I shifted away from atheism towards spirituality. I believe my life's purpose is to spread love, joy, understanding, and inclusion in this universe, using my unique creativity and empathy. Sometimes we can trace back our why directly to the root causes, some experiences that deeply impacted us. I've heard them called sacred wounds. Mine were my experiences with my high pressure tiger family, particularly my mother, experiencing what it was like to be unworthy in her eyes, knowing so deeply the pain of that, and not wanting anyone else to feel the way that I did. And my experiences being bullied and a misfit, an atypical girl, and transplant as an immigrant who moved about 10 times before age 10, which is why I am so sensitive to and passionate about helping others feel welcomed, understood, and included. Number 6, what is your why? And the suspected origin stories behind that. What gets you riled up? Are there any issues in the world or that you hear about that just make your blood boil or stir up crazy emotions inside of you? Have you thought about what you'd want to change if you could just wave a magic wand? It's okay if you don't have any big dreams or things you want to change outside of you. If you just want a simple, peaceful life focused on yourself or perhaps your immediate loved ones in your community, there is no right or wrong at all. If you do feel drawn to a bigger mission or purpose, that can be a protective factor during hard times, but it's not necessary. So again, I ask, what drives or motivates you? Humans all tend to want to seek pleasure and avoid pain, but they have discovered that not all pleasure is created equal. And there's two main types that they discovered, hedonistic versus eudaimonic. And this could simply be from societal conditioning as well. I'll include a link about that in the show notes. For number 7, I'll ask you, what did you love as a kid? Because kids seem to know who they are more than some adults do. We came into this world bold, unfiltered, and confident until we picked up on conditionings and programmings from others that often censor and diminish us. We're told that our dreams, our authentic desires in our heart are impractical or unrealistic or absurd. So what were those childhood dreams of yours? How did you change, or how did your experiences shape you? Who are you now compared to who you were? What has your journey been like? And why and how did you start censoring and diminishing yourself? Do you ever feel inklings of these inexplicable yearnings for something? Many of us have gotten so good at being an adult, practicing self-discipline, restriction, and deprivation, keeping our composure all the time, maintaining our image, fitting in, doing what we should do or what is responsible to do, fitting in, all these things, all these unspoken rules, that we can't even access what we really want, think, or feel. We may feel totally numb inside or neutral to everything. Number 8, how do you typically make decisions? Do you use a pros cons list, go by immediate gut feeling, or maybe perhaps you marinate on something for a long time until things feel more clear or complete? One tool you can start to use to recognize what you want and honing your intuition would be to practice making some teeny tiny choices first. If you're used to saying, oh, I have no preference, because I genuinely have no preference, you decide or someone else decide. Try forcing yourself to make a decision between 2 or more options. Use them in a zero-stake situation so that the fear of picking wrong or upsetting someone else doesn't get in the way. When you get comfortable with recognizing which one feels better to you, then you can move on to larger, higher stakes decisions, gradually over time. The feelings are completely unique to you. Some people describe one choice as more heavy and constricting feeling, like dead weight, or chains surrounding them. And others say that other feeling is more light or expansive. And some describe a burst of excitement at the thought of one decision, or a warmth in their belly or their chest. And some experience nausea, headaches, or physical pain somewhere. With more practice, you'll definitely get more in touch with your body's signals. The more decisions you make, the better you'll get at recognizing how your own unique internal wisdom operates. And for all the scientists out there, they have found 100 million neurons or nerve cells that are located all along the gut. So there actually is wisdom in our bodies. It's not all in the brain. This goes for memories and experiences that impacted you long before you could consciously form memories of them too. They are all stored in your body, in your cells. There's this fantastic book on trauma called The Body Keeps the Score that I highly recommend. Now, I'm not saying revert back to your carefree childhood days where you did whatever you wanted, whenever and wherever. I'm saying don't throw it all out when you become a responsible adult. You can keep the best of both worlds, and your mental and physical health will all thank you for doing so. Keep some part of your childhood. Revisit those dreams and ideas because they can help you feel more alive. If they don't worry about it. Some people do genuinely change and expand beyond their childhood yearnings, or perhaps discover new things that they're passionate about or that are more important to them. What psychologists have found, though, is that no matter what age we get to, we all have an inner child that needs our internal love, care, and tending to. But more on this in another episode. And lastly, I'll say it's totally okay to change. We all do. We're always changing, whether we try to or not. 10 years ago, how different were you? So why would you expect yourself to know fully what the 10 years in the future you would want? So just forgive yourself and give yourself some grace. In summary, no matter where you think they came from, we all have passions, or at least preferences. Discovering more of what you authentically want empowers you to advocate for them, because only you can know yourself to that deep of a level. Words just can't describe your internal experiences to other people. Perhaps some loved ones seem to know you better than you know yourself. They can be wonderful resources and mirrors to reflect back answers at you when you're feeling unsure. However, I really want to emphasize you building that muscle of yours for yourself, of self-knowing, inquiry, awareness, examination, and advocacy. It is never time or energy wasted, and it will make the rest of your life smoother. You will save time when you deeply know yourself well, time that you might have otherwise spent going down a path that isn't right for you or doesn't feel good to you. Once you've defined your core, your bottom bit of the iceberg, the bottom 90%, who you are, you can add back in the external things that you want to be, do, or have that you think you need in order to be acceptable to society. Your answer is from episode 1. And for each one you wrote down, though, I want you to take it a level deeper. Explore, why do you want that? What are the components broken down behind that goal, the values and needs that they fulfill? Discovering and fleshing out your core from this episode should help you with answering that. And if you find that that goal doesn't align fully or fulfills something within your core, please make a note of that. Mark it down. We'll revisit that in a later episode. So this concludes today's episode. Be gentle with yourself, since self-discovery is not an easy process. It can and often does take years, decades. It's probably one of the hardest things that we ever can do in this lifetime. So listen to this episode as many times as you'd want and need, and work through the resources at your own pace. As always, I welcome you to message me your thoughts and responses or share them with my Facebook community. I'd love to hear from you, particularly if you have questions or differing viewpoints. If you want support in discovering who you truly are, book a call with me. I'm always happy to chat about these topics, give you personalized feedback on your situation, and point you towards recommended support and resources. And if it's a good fit, we can talk about working together in a coaching container to co-create a life of your fullest, authentic self-expression, the fullest that you can imagine, connecting to your already wildly successful inner core and naturally excelling as you share that gift that is you with the world. I'm also accepting guests for this podcast to share your stories, experiences, and lessons. We're stronger together, and there's so much that we can learn from one another. So let's accept and then achieve. See you next week.